everyone. I'm Maya Palacio for Media Maya, partnering with Channel 82, and today I have with us Detective Sergeant Jason Smith. Mr. Smith, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Now, you are the lead investigator for the Chavelle Dillon Burgess murder case.
Yes.
First off, I just want to start off with the timeline of Chavelle going missing, and can we get some perspective on, we know that on April 11th was the last time that she was seen. And if I'm correct, it was by a close friend of hers that had seen her. And on the April 30th is when she was reported missing. Can you tell me some perspective or some results maybe that your investigation may have found when kind of deciding why that gap was so big?
So she was actually by her friends. She was last heard from on about the 11th of April. And throughout that period of time, they had made several attempts to contact her via phone in particular, and there was no responses. And so the alarm bells began to ring. It was definitely unusual for her to not be able to be contacted or reachable, at least by phone. And so then they started to push certain buttons. And then on the 30th of April is when it came to the police attention that she was missing and had been missing or not heard from or seen since the 11th of April.
And during that time, because we know that she has a son, who was taking care of her son?
Well, at the time that she was missing, prior to the police, she was with a relative of the father's. She was with the father. And
do we know at this moment in time, does the family need any assistance by any chance from the community or anything?
Well, I think the commission, as I understand, put out a message on Facebook not too long ago asking for family or the community support to assist them. And that's an effort, I think, that's been made public over Facebook. So the information there can be used to make contact or to assist them.
Okay. So going back to the timeline, after April 30th, the police found out, what was the first steps?
So the first things we did was we went to the residence where she stayed, and that's where our search began.
Okay. And then after finding the search, and here we are today on October 5th, is it true that a 39-year-old male has been arrested for this
Yes,
case?
a man has been taken into custody for this case, yes.
Okay. Do we know anything else that you can share with us about this man, whether he be a relative of hers or someone close to her?
At this stage in the investigation, I think we're still early on with that, and there are active inquiries that are being made, so I wouldn't want to go into much detail about that. But as we did report when it happened, there is a man who has been taken into police custody, and he's currently on police bail.
How many persons have actually come forward to the police themselves and tried to give information on regards of Chavelle?
Actually, the public support has been great. There have been lots of people that have called in with bits and pieces of information, and a lot of those lines of inquiry have been pursued in an attempt to try to find her. So there's lots of public support, but we always and continuously are renewing the appeal because there's still, we believe, lots of people that haven't contacted us that may have information. So we were still actively there, but there has been a tremendous amount of public support, people calling in, people giving tips, oftentimes as well, people who are giving advice to us as investigators on where we can search and what we should be doing. So we welcome all of that.
Okay, that's good to know. What about, I know you guys had cadaver dogs come in already. I know you've checked through the Warwick ponds. Has any other ponds in Bermuda been thoroughly checked for Chavelle?
Yeah, you will find that throughout the entire island, there's several places that have been checked and searched. And then some of them are obvious, places that you were going to search. Some of them are not as obvious. And again, we are guided by information that comes in. So that's why we continually make these appeals to say to people, if you do see something, if you've seen something, if you've heard something, then make contact with us, because all of that bits of information helps us and helps to direct us as to where we're searching.
Now, what about draining ponds? Is that something that Bermuda can do? Can we drain ponds to look for things in there?
I can tell you that that's been a discussion, but whether or not it's possible, the experts say no. But all kinds of information that has come to our attention, we have looked at. We discussed lots of things. And yes, that's one of the discussions about draining the pond.
Okay. My last question before we go on break is, earlier on, in the midst of the pandemic, probably in the beginning stages, there was this video that was circulating about a chimney and some smoke.
Right.
And so you've heard about this video and
Yes,
seen
yes,
it. What were the results that came out of that? Did you guys investigate that?
We did, yes.
And,
There was nothing in that, from an investigative point of view, that took us any further than where we are today.
okay. All right. Thank you. And when we come back, we'll be talking about why Chavelle's case is a murder case. Okay. All right. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I have with us Detective Sergeant Jason Smith, and we're talking about Chavelle Dillon Burgess and the murder case. Now, Detective Smith, my next question for you is, why is this being treated as a murder case without no body being found?
So we have to look at the circumstances of the case. And this is a case where a young lady who had a particular lifestyle and lifestyle with certain behaviors that all of a sudden it's stopped. Just no one's heard from her. It's as if she's completely vanished from the earth. There are some other circumstances and details about the case that I'm not privy to go into at this stage. But as a result of all of that, when we look at her lifestyle and her behavior, she was in communication, constant communication with family and friends. She had certain levels of employment. She expressed that she was anticipating doing certain things. So there was nothing other than, or nothing to indicate prior to her going missing, that there were any major issues. And so as a result of that, when we put together that coupled with other facts and circumstances and evidence, that we made the decision to rule her disappearance as a murder.
Now, you stop me if I'm wrong about things, because I don't know too much about the case moving forward when someone is arrested, and whether or not you guys will still pursue to charge someone for murder without finding a body. Would that be something that you consider doing?
Well, what will happen is when the appropriate time comes, we will prepare a file for review by the Department of Public Prosecutions, and ultimately they make that decision on whether or not someone will be charged or not.
Okay. Now, we know at this time there's still a $50,000 reward for
Yes.
Chavelle. Has there ever been a reward that high before in Bermuda?
We have had rewards in the past, in particular for cases of murder, and I can think of a few. As to the exact dollar amount, I'm not quite sure whether or not this is the highest, but I do know that there have been there are several cases where we have offered reward money for information that leads to the arrest, in this case, the discovery and recovery of her body. So it's not uncommon.
Well, it's not uncommon. Can you tell me, possibly, if you would know, would someone actually what's the likelihood of someone getting convicted without a body being found?
Well, again, I think we'll leave that up to the prosecutors. As a detective, as a police, our job is to present the evidence. So we go out, we investigate, and we present the evidence to the DPP's office. And then they'll take the matter if they feel that there is sufficient evidence. They will recommend an approval charge, and it will go before the courts. And then there will be, if there's a trial, the person will be judged by a jury of their peers. And so that's the process. So we just have to do our part in gathering the evidence and presenting it, and then let the prosecutors make those decisions on how we go forward.
Okay. Now, we know a lot of persons in the community are still searching and helping the police search for Chavelle. How has the community support been throughout, even up to today? Has it still been pretty steady, or is it starting to drip or get higher?
Yeah, so, I think one of the reasons that we're here today is to continue to raise the level of awareness to the public, to let them know that it is still a very active investigation. And I think the public are on board with that. We even in personal capacity, it's difficult to go anywhere and someone don't stop and ask the question. How's that investigation going? What is happening? So that's positive. That indicates that there is a level of awareness in the community, and I think this is, as you said earlier, it's one of the first of its kind for Bermuda. So it's definitely on the minds of people. And people are curious. People want to know, what's going on. I believe a lot of people want to have her found, and at least be able to have some closure as to exactly what has happened to her. And so we are working towards that, and we are continuing to make that appeal to our community. If you do see something, come and tell us. Every bit of information you have is important. And I know we say this all the time, but we just can't forget that, and we repeat that time and time again because it is true.
Now we know it's coming up to about 6 months now since she's been
Yes.
missing, reported missing. So my question to you would be, is that, I don't want to use the word normal, but what is the likelihood? I mean, 6 months, have you had an investigation be this long before without finding a missing person?
So I think in the history of Bermuda, there hasn't been many cases like this where someone has gone missing for this length of time, and they not be found. So it is unusual, but we continue to press towards finding her.
And what is the hope of your department in terms of Chavelle?
Well, every day that goes by, we remain hopeful that we will find something that will be able to bring closure to her family and to our community, because I think this has now become a community sort of effort as well. It's almost like a community investigation because there's such a high level of interest in the case. So we are hopeful. We are hopeful that we will, be able to find her, and we'll be able to bring closure to her family.
Thank you for that. And when we come back, we're going to be talking about the strategy into finding Chavelle. And once again, everyone, if you know something, say something. Hi everyone, and welcome back. Thank you for staying tuned in. Again, I have with us Detective Sergeant Jason Smith about Chavelle Dillon Burgess's murder case. Now we're going to talk about strategy here. Can you tell me, every single day that you go into work and all the other colleagues and people who are investigated in this case, what are their main jobs? What did they do?
So obviously the police service has lots of people that have different functions. For this case, there is a dedicated team of which I lead within my office, and our primary focus is to investigate the circumstances surrounding her disappearance and her murder. So we have daily briefings on the case. We also have a search team, a dedicated search team that has a search officer and a search coordinator whose daily task. I mean, we've talked about we pulled officers from other duties to specifically deal with this case in terms of searching. So those are part of the strategies, and of course, you look at the case, you look at what has been done, you look at statements that have been taken, and you go over those statements and you review them. A lot of times there's consultation with the prosecutors on where we are and which direction that we're heading, and as well as we have meetings with senior command of the police to keep them abreast as to the developments and where we are.
So when you get new updates then about Chavelle's case, like what will be the next steps? So I'm trying to find the question here is to what was the last update on Chavelle's case? Like, who was the last person that came in and possibly gave you guys information that you may have been able to act on, and what happened, and where are we?
Yeah, so the last bit of information that required us to have a discussion was just this afternoon. Where a member of the public had called in with some information.
Okay. And the next steps for that would be to have a briefing tomorrow and then...
Right, so we'll discuss that with the search team, whose specific task is to go into search, and we'll have that discussion, and we'll look at how we will analyze, process the information that we've received, and then act upon it.
Is it still Is it still mandatory or still a working process for you guys to like search the entire island over and over continuously?
Right. So we were taking a systematic approach to it, and and we're being guided by information that's coming in from members of the public, but also we are being guided by different bits and pieces of evidence that we have that is being analyzed. So when you approach an investigation, there's a lot of times you have certain resources that are available to you, and some of those resources are in the form of analysts whose function is to constantly to be looking at information that's coming in, and they analyze that. And so all of those factors play and helping us make our decisions on how we're going to go forward. So that's all part of this process.
Okay, so those analyzers would, I guess, like narrow down into where exactly you guys should be looking or researching or asking questions to whom?
Right. So the analyst will look at the information that is provided and be able to give a analytical view on what we should be looking at or where we should be going. And again, that's guided a lot of times by, it could be tactical analysts that's been done. It could be done by reviewing of statements, as I said earlier, and just looking at the investigation holistically.
So how many persons would you say that we've actually had to recruit from away to help us with this investigation in Bermuda?
Well, we haven't recruited anybody from overseas to help us. What we've done is we've consulted with a police force in the UK that actually has a similar case that they investigated last year. Well, it went to trial last year, and actually the person was convicted.
Were they able to find, I'm guessing, find the body of their person?
No, the body was not found in that particular case.
So how have they been able to assist with this case?
Well, just sharing of information, just passing on some of their knowledge and experience, and different investigative lines of inquiry that they pursued. In fact, just this weekend, I had some conversation with some of the police officers that were involved in that particular case.
So in terms of the strategy then, what would you say, the next possible step in that, say, a month? Things have not progressed. What's the next step?
In the investigation?
Yeah.
We will continue to investigate until such time that we reach a conclusion or we come to a decision about where we go. So I don't know if I can say it's going to be 6 weeks or 4 weeks from now. We will continue to pursue every line of inquiry until the appropriate time when we are told or certain decisions are made.
Now, before I ask you about how people can contact you and get their voices to you and help you with this investigation, is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you feel like should be known to the public right now?
Yeah, I think we want to just say to the public that, this is very much at the forefront of our investigations, and we are keeping it in focus. And so we just ask for your continued support. We have to bear in mind that Chavelle leaves behind a son, a mother, and a grandmother. And there are lots of people who are very close to her that are grieving. And so we want, and it is our responsibility as a community, not only as a police force, but as a community, to continue to investigate this case until we can reach a conclusion. And we absolutely are committed and determined to do that.
Thank you. So how can persons be able to contact you?
So if anybody has any information that can lead to the discovery, recovery of Chavelle, and to assist the investigation, they can contact myself on 717-0864.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to have this interview with me.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.